Okay, so a little bit about the writing program in general. Our goal here is to have that writing process be automatic. By the time they graduate, for it to be instinctive. But in order for us to get to that point, we have to break it down into small incremental steps, practice those steps again and again, week after week, month after month, year after year, until the whole process becomes automatic for them. And it won't surprise you that I think the writing program is as much as a thinking program as it is a writing program. Because what it is taking a chaos of information, a jumble of facts and thoughts in your head, and putting it in a purposeful, organized form. So if they're doing that in their writing, they're inherently developing that skill in their thinking too. And so especially when they get to junior high and they're in my hands, they've already mastered the basic process of forming a paragraph or forming an essay, and at that point it is rigorous thinking training. That's how I think of it then. Have you justified your point? Is it clear? Have you said exactly what you meant? Do you have a specific purpose? Is your purpose obvious in the presentation of your writing? That is what I'm training them to do. Okay, so a couple of the ways we accommodate this. One is to have a formal writing class right from the beginning. The younger kids have half an hour a day, 5 days a week for writing. My kids have 3 days a week, 45 minutes for writing. And so that's the class in which they are learning the writing process and practicing it again and again. But then of course they're writing in every subject. They're writing paragraphs for literature, they're writing paragraph tests for history. Probably some of them have been studying in the last few days for that. They're writing in every subject, so they're applying these skills universally, but they also have that formal writing class to learn the skills explicitly. And then it works both ways. In writing class, we as writing teachers go to the other teachers and ask for suggestions of topics. Again, one, so that it's something they know about. What we're asking is for what they have been studying and talking about in class, and then we're using the writing class as an opportunity to structure and reinforce those ideas from other classes. Just as an example, in room 204, which is Mr. Mizrahi's homeroom, they were reading Arthurian legends, and Mrs. Battaglia wanted a writing project for them. So since I have 2 of her students in my own home, I talked to them and I said, what was the most exciting thing from Arthurian legends? And they started telling me a couple of the stories, and we noticed that a couple of the stories had a common element, which was mistaken identities leading to someone being killed. And the mistaken identity turning out to be a terrible tragedy because the person who was killed was your brother, or it was one of Arthur's knights and he didn't know it. So that became their writing topic, and Mrs. Battaglia used that for writing. It was their theme for their writing project was, in Arthurian legends, tragedies are also often caused by mistaken identities. And they were able to find 3 examples of that from their stories. So again, something they know, something they were particularly excited about, and now writing becomes an opportunity to formalize and articulately express that theme. Okay. So I just want to skip ahead, and then I'm going to talk about how this process is built up over the years to some of the consequences or results of this program. I think a lot of you saw and read the newsletter, which I think had 2 particularly poignant examples of our writing successes. One was Grady Williams' nomination essay of Mr. Black, which he just sat down at his desk and wrote, and when his mom sent it to me, she said, I owe you guys credit for the fact that he could write something this well structured just sitting down at his desk on his own time. And it reflected everything we've taught him. It was very neatly organized, well structured. He had a clear point. So I thought that was beautiful. And even just the letter that I got from Alexa McElroy, who's at Sage, beautifully, beautifully written letter in which she's thanking me for the education she got at VanDamme Academy. Well, I was as much touched by the form of the letter as I was by the content. Similarly, we had a graduate a few years ago, Evan Storms, who went to Fairmont High School and was a writer for the school newspaper there. And I don't know if you've all seen it, but in the VanDamme Academy brochure, at the back, I've included an article that he wrote for the Fairmont newspaper, which was called "What's Wrong with Multiple Choice Testing?" And once again, the content, what's wrong with multiple choice testing? Where did he get that? He got that from VanDamme Academy. But again, more importantly, it was just beautifully written, beautifully written. I've had a few students over the years who surpassed my ability to write, which is very exciting when it happens, and this was really amazingly well done. We had a student who, I think it was as part of the application process for the Johns Hopkins program, took the writing SAT. Writing SAT is for juniors in high school. It's part of their college application. Well, he took it in 7th grade. Got perfect 800 on the writing SAT. So our kids can write. They can write well. Oh, one other story I have to share. I had a parent visit once who was a law professor. And she was sitting at my desk, and we were talking about various aspects of VanDamme Academy. And she said, well, what about your writing curriculum? Can you tell me about that? And I said, oh, sure, because I was teaching writing at the time. And so I just pulled out of my bag some rough drafts that my kids had done about, I think it was about The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which we had been reading at the time. These were rough drafts, and I handed them to her, and I said, keep in mind, these are rough drafts, but here you go. This is an example of the kind of writing they're doing. And I wish you could have seen her expression as she was reading them. And then she said, may I make some photocopies of these to bring to my law students, because I want to show them what good writing looks like. So we produce good writers, and it really does make them stand out. Oh, one last thing. Yeah, I know. See, I could go on. This is the bragging part of the session. You know that I started as a homeschool teacher, and I had a group of 4 to 7 students that I was teaching at the home. Well, one of them went to Chapman University at 12 and UCI at 13. And he was at UCI in the Honors Humanities program. And one of his Honors Humanities teachers pulled him aside and asked him, where did you learn how to write? Because at 13, his writing stood out among his 18-year-old peers. This will be true of your children too. It's going to, it puts them at a huge advantage. There's no doubt about it. Now, I could talk about the advantage from the high school, college perspective, but for me, they can think, they can structure their ideas, they know how to make a point, they know how to organize their thoughts, they know when they've satisfied the requirements of an argument. So that is my pride from the result.